welcome back to Sam Meads Reads. Just starting off this reading vlog a little bit differently than how I usually do, not in front of a bookcase, actually sitting down having a read. Yeah, my reading time I find is very much dictated to by probably the constraints of parenthood, which is absolutely fine. I've just say dropped off my son at nursery and I've got a couple of hours before I start work, so it's a great time to kind of sit down and read. I'm reading at the moment Frank Herbert's Children of Dune. I'm finding it a bit tougher than the first two to get into. It's very insular, I think, as a book. It's very much everything is happening inside the characters' heads for a lot of it. A lot of the kind of plot mechanisms are all fault-based, and especially with, not to get into spoilers, but kind of the future stuff and the prescience. Yeah, it all kind of feels very, very insular at the moment. But hopefully, I guess that was very much the same with the first Dune, and then the other one where it kind of, as you go through the book, it kind of gets a bit more grander in scale. Actually, I think it's one of the things that the Denis Villeneuve films have done very well, which is taking all of that internal conflict and turning it into massive spectacle, which is like a visual treat. But yeah, it's going okay. I'm enjoying reading it. I don't think it's the best one, and which is a bit, yeah, I guess from what I've heard about the Dune series is that they do progressively, after maybe this one, they do go downhill quite a bit. So I'll see how I find it. I am enjoying reading that. And the other thing I'm doing is, obviously I've mentioned before, audiobooks. I'm listening to the Arsene Wenger autobiography audiobook, which probably tells you which football team I support as well. So I'll probably lose loads of subscribers once they figure that one out, which is fine. But yeah, no, enjoying that. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting audiobook because I think I said last time when I was talking about the Stephen Fry audiobook that having, I guess, the author reading you the book they've written is always the best way to go. And it is great to hear Arsene Wenger's story and being told by him in his own words, his own voice. But it's an interesting thing, which obviously Arsene Wenger is French, and he has a terrific kind of grasp of the English language. He's very knowledgeable. He speaks incredibly well whenever you see him interviewed, doing punditry. But he wrote his autobiography in French, and it was then translated into English. And so now he's reading the translation, which you never know if it's exactly what he wrote or exactly how he intended it, the phrasing, and it does sometimes feel a little bit awkward. And it also very much feels like with Stephen Fry, this is someone who, he does audiobooks anyway. He's an audio, say, a voice artist basically, and he's done some of the biggest audiobooks ever. So hearing him read his own books is great. The other kind of audiobooks I've listened to, the film reviewer Mark Commode, when he's a radio host as well, so he's used to chatting. I feel with Arsene Wenger, he's not used to talking this much, and it's not the smoothest listening experience. Just in terms of it, level, sometimes you can hear like it kind of of him kind of like monotonely saying something and then it jumps back up with lots of energy for no reason. It's obviously they've had a break at some point and gone back into it, and yeah, it's just little things like that. But I'd still probably prefer to hear him tell his story than anyone else. But there's definitely an interesting kind of experience of him reading a translation of his work, which sometimes when he's reading it, you feel he's reading it for the first time as opposed to these other words that he's naturally written, which obviously hasn't been the case. So yeah, but still really enjoying that. That's very much about his dedication, his passion, the kind of I guess what it takes, or the not ambition, but the compulsion, the obsession it takes to succeed. And yeah, and also about man management. And yeah, I think it's one of those ones that even if you're not a football fan, I think it'd be worth a listen to, just because this is one of the all-time great man managers, like sporting manager, whatever, and hearing him talk about his techniques, and also how much at the forefront of kind of new techniques he was. So it's, yeah, real interesting kind of listen. I'm about halfway through that one, and so yeah, hopefully it'll be finished by next week. But yeah, so just kind of cracking on with reading this, listen to that. I've also been listening to, and I kind of just want to shout, I don't have a physical version of it yet, but the new Vampire Weekend album, Only God Was Above Us. That's fantastic as well, so do check that out if you do get a chance. But yeah, what I might do is start off as a little reading vlog, and I think probably do a little bit, or a part one of maybe a bookshelf tour, just going through some of the books, what I've read, what I haven't read, what I'm looking forward to reading, different versions of the books I've got. So yeah, hopefully that'll be quite interesting, but I'll do that in the next part. But for now, I'm just going to carry on reading and enjoying a cup of coffee, and yeah, I'll catch back up with you in a bit. Sorry about the delay in this video. A lot of live stuff come up. It's been a couple of weeks since I released the video. It's a couple of weeks since I actually filmed the first part of this video, but I thought I'd carry on. Obviously, you can tell time's passed. I've shaved, so look a bit different as well. But yeah, a lot of live stuff, mainly to do with cats and vets, but everything, you know, fingers crossed, is sorted now, or it's good for the time being, so I won't go too much into that. But what I'll do is carry on from where I left off and say, you know, I was going to do a bit of a bookshelf tour, so just go through what I've got up here. I won't do a full bookshelf this one, I split into a couple of parts, but we'll start up at the top corner. I'm not going to pull everything down, I'll just talk about them. Actually, I can pull them down if I can. So first up, I've got Jim Butcher and the Dresden Files. So here you've got the first 5. I've read the first 2. I first kind of got into the Dresden Files after watching the TV show, even though I know it's rubbish and not really related to this much more than name and a couple of things. But really enjoyed the first 2. You know, decent kind of sci-fi, fantasy, cop stuff. But yeah, nothing. I guess my problem with Dresden Files at the moment is I enjoy reading them. There's nothing too special, but from what I've heard, it just gets better and better and builds into something really special. So that's what I'm kind of waiting to get into. But I'm doing it a little bit at a time, taking my time with them. Yeah, so that's the Dresden Files. I've got the Cat House Safe books. I think I mentioned this on my last vlog. Really enjoyed that one. It was the kind of the book that got me into these small kind of books, especially about cats. But no, I really enjoyed this one. But yeah, that's. I've also got a couple more, like She and Her Cat, which I mentioned last time. Really loved this one. I thought that was fantastic. Again, spoke about it last time. The Kamigawa Food Detectives, really good. And one I haven't read yet. There's a couple here that I haven't read yet, which is What Are You Looking For? What You Are Looking For is in the library. So looking forward to getting onto that one, and yeah, reading that one. Hopefully soon. And what else? So I've also got up here a couple. I've not read the Gentleman Bastard trilogy, but yeah, the Blade itself and Before They Hanged. It's one of those ones I decided to buy it in the nicer edition or the anniversary edition just before I even read it, because I knew I was going to buy it and there was a birthday coming up, so I thought I'd get them in these editions, which yeah, look really good. Although weirdly they are slightly different shades, but I don't know if the third one's going to be in different shade. I need to get the third one as well, and do need to start reading them. A book that I read the first one of ages ago, and then I saw, I say they've got the trilogy, which is Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy. I've not watched the TV show, but I did really love the first book when I read it, which was years ago. It was probably like 10 years ago when I read it, but so I do need to reread it and read the second 2 as well. What else have we got? David Mitchell's Slade House. This is really good, almost like a vampire story. It's only a short novella for David Mitchell, but say fantastic book, and it's really kind of like a companion piece to The Bone Clocks, which is one of my favourite books of all time. So yeah, recommend Slade House by David Mitchell as well. I've also got
a copy. I think I picked it up for cheap of Philip Pullman's The Amber Spyglass. I feel like I've got a lot of his Dark Materials, but in lots of different and varied formats. I think when I first started reading them, I've got like the 3 books like in paperback, but all different styles, so not from the same kind of publishing date, I guess. But yeah, so I think this was an attempt to, I thought I'd get this one and I'd get the other 2, and I saw this one cheap. But since then I'll show you, I've got the illustrated editions, which are lovely. And then lastly, up on the top shelf, I've got the Stanley Kubrick archives. We went, so me and my wife and her parents, we went into London when they had the Stanley Kubrick exhibition, which was really good, and I got that there. So yeah, it's just a nice kind of reference book to flick through. I've not read all of it, but read bits of it. But yeah, and if you go, if they do that exhibition again, really worth going to, really interesting. So that's my top shelf. The bookshelf is more arranged with, I guess, where things fit, as opposed to anything, say, more substantial than that. I have tried in the past to have like sci-fi stuff all together and fantasy stuff, like obviously there's fantasy stuff in there, there's sci-fi in there, but I do try to kind of keep books which are similar together, or let's say by the same author. Obviously I've got a David Mitchell book here and other David Mitchell books elsewhere, so that's yeah, so it's not always all together, these ones. So I've got Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. Never read any of J. Christoph, but just really intrigued by the cover, the premise as well. A world full of vampires sounds pretty interesting, so I picked that one up a while ago. Need to get around to reading it. On the strength of the Nickel Boys, I bought Harlem Shuffle and Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead, so looking forward to reading those. But because the Nickel Boys was great, I've also got, see, somewhere down there, Underground Railroad, and I've not read that yet, but I really want to as well. This one I've attempted to read, but but I haven't ever finished it, which is a Stranger Things spin-off novel, Darkness on the Edge of Town. I thought I'd really like it. I've actually got actually I'll jump ahead. I've also got Suspicious Minds as well. I really enjoyed this one. Thought this was great. Thought I'd enjoy this more because of the Bruce Springsteen reference on the front. Found it really hard to get into, but I'll probably give it another go another time. These I bought for my wife, thinking she might like them. I don't think she's read them yet either, but that's the Atlas 6 and Atlas Paradox. I know they're a bit of like a TikTok trend. I thought she might like them, but we haven't got round to reading those yet either. These, well, my wife really loves loved The Martian by Andy Weir. I know she said she didn't like Artemis, so I've read, since she's kind of recommended it, she didn't like this, so I've not read it, but she loved this Project Hail Mary, and I read it after her, and it's fantastic. And I've read The Martian recently, very good as well. So yeah, got a couple of Andy Weir books there. Also have Ready Player 2, which I don't think I minded as much as other people seem to. I thought it was fun. Yeah, as enjoyable as Ready Player 1, I guess, as well. I've also got an autobiography here, which is Remain in Love. You really need to read this. This is Chris France, who was, say, a member of both Talking Heads, which I'm really into, and the Tom Tom Club. So, yeah, looking forward to reading that as well. So I've got a lot of books here, which I do need to get around to reading. This one is an odd one, which is The Ship of Theseus, or S, by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. This was kind of, like I said, like one of my favourite TV shows is Lost. I've mentioned that before. This was like at the height of J.J. Abrams kind of producing on TV, and it's like a mystery book. It's really interesting. Looks like a library book which you can read, but there's a conversation that's happening between two people who are renting out the books in the margins, writing to each other, leaving things in postcards and clues and decoders behind as they do it. So that, to me, I guess I kind of realised that's going to take a bit of time and concentration to get into, and I've just not had that. So yeah, I'll get around to that eventually. And then lastly, for this shelf, I've got Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, but this is the Mina Lima edition, which I don't know if you've seen any Mina Lima ones. They're really fantastic. They've got some, like I say, great illustrations, things that kind of pop out and pull out and stuff as you go along. Yeah, so I've got a few of these and they're great. They're most known for they were the production designers or art designers on a lot of the Harry Potter films. So, and then they've done a couple of the Harry Potter books, which I do have 2 of, but they're very good as well. So, yeah, that is the shelf. Yeah, definitely you're going to see some of my hobbies beyond reading or interest beyond just reading here. So first of all, I've got Mark Commode, How Does It Feel? I've actually not read this one. I've got a couple of these other ones. I've listened to him through audiobooks. So Mark Commode, if you're not in the UK, I guess was on the BBC as a film critic. He's got his own YouTube channel now with Simon Mayo, and yeah, it just really like him. I think he's very witty, and like kind of, even though I don't always agree on his takes on films, he's always got a great take. So got his one of his, I've got a couple of other ones, so I think this one's a bit more about his like music, and I know he's in a skiffle band as well, so haven't read that one yet, but we'll get around to it. One I have read, and probably one of my favourite autobiographies, is Bruce Springsteen with Born to Run. I love Bruce Springsteen. I've seen him, I think, 3 times live, which I know is not a lot for some Springsteen fans, but he's been fantastic every time I've seen him, and it's just great to get a bit more of an insight into his life. And actually, it's a deeply personal book. I think it's a lot about his relationship with his dad, a lot about his relationships in general, and quite candid as well, which I think is, I guess quite a bit different from, say, the Alex James one I've got. So Alex James is the bass player of Blur. Didn't like this one as much. I felt whereas Springsteen, I think, is much more personal. This is more about, I guess, the milestones of Blur and a career, as opposed to Bruce Springsteen, which I think is more about his life. Next one is one of my wife's books, which is Speak Your Truth by Fern Cotton. I have no idea what that's about, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Next one is mine, which is the autobiography from Kevin Smith. I won't say the title because I don't really want to swear too much on this channel, but really, this is probably, I got this at the height of my kind of like listening to Smodcasts and watching Kevin Smith films. I guess I don't listen to him as much as I used to. Something that maybe I've grown out of a little bit. I still will watch his films and find them semi-enjoyable. I don't think he's as good as he used to be, but that's each their own. But yeah, interesting book as well. And then the next one isn't, I guess I'd call it an autobiography. So you'll tell what football team I support if you know anything about football. So this is Dennis Bergkamp with Stillness and Speed. It's really interesting because it's an autobiography, but more it's like it's an interview, and the way it's done is there's questions and answers. So there's no kind of pretense of like a ghostwriter writing this for him. It's, someone interviewed him and here's his answers, and it takes you through his life through an interview, which I think, a bit more honest, which is, and that's a really good one, about dedication, about, what it takes to be a top class footballer, top class athlete. Next I've got Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the play. Bit disappointing. I've not seen the play, probably will at some point, but not a big fan of, like, say, just I read the script just to, find out more lore from the world, and wasn't a massive fan. Next I've got some Star Wars High Republic stuff. So let's take these 3 out once. I've got starting with like their more kind of, I guess, the young adult trilogy that was first released. So I've read Into the Dark, decent enough as well. Thought it was quite interesting, and then I need to read these 2, and I guess it's the same with the next 2 I've read. Light of the Jedi, which I thought was a bit boring, and I've also got Rise and Storm, which I want to say it's interesting that they've kind of gone along this approach of it's a trilogy, or that different timelines and different settings and different age groups, but they've got different authors for each book. So I wonder, I've not read the sequel for any of these, so I wonder if they'll make kind of different authors going to enhance my enjoyment, or I find it a bit jarring. I did a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic, we had like a family holiday lined up for Florida, and I bought the Galaxy's Edge book, Black Spire, which actually is probably the most enjoyable out of all of these Star Wars books I've read. Well, these ones in particular. I thought that was quite good, even though it's a bit of a silly kind of way to introduce you to the Star Wars land that they've got over old Black Spire Outpost over in Florida. But yeah, we never ended up getting to go on that trip, but still read the book and thought it was quite decent. And next I've got Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Again, this is a Mina Lima copy, so really lovely edition with, say, great illustrations. Yeah, so paperbacks here, so there's going to be more on this row. I think this will be the last row I do for this part of the video, and then I'll do the bottom. How many shelves we done? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 for next time. Perfect. So Galveston by Nick Pizzolatto. I think this is the guy who created True Detective. I know he's been in like the news recently with some of his not being too happy with the new season, which he wasn't involved in. But it's a decent enough book. It was a bit of a holiday read, so definitely a good beach read, but you know, nothing more than that. These I've read, let's go, these 5. I've read the first 3 of the, I think I mentioned this before, the Mick Herron, that was a bit of a blunder, Mick Herron, like the Slow Horses, Slough House books. I've got 2 more. Interestingly enough, I bought this one first because I knew about the show coming out. I knew it was called, its working title was Slough House, and I bought this one thinking, oh, this must be the first one, and it was actually like the 7th. But yes, I need to read Spook Street and Slough, and kind of, keep reading these. And I've got these in 2 different versions of the books, which is always fun. Next, I said like the Colson Whitehead. I need to read the Underground Railroad. Looking forward to reading that. I have read the Nickel Boys, and I really like that. I thought it was really moving, really affecting, and definitely worth a read. Obviously, there's probably some trigger warnings around that as well. You might want to look into it because it is about abuse. It's a bit about racism as well. But that one will say a decent read as well. Next, I've got, actually, this is a book I've never heard anyone talk about. I think I just picked it up cheap somewhere, but Everyone Dies Famous in a Small Town by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. I probably bought it because of the title, just thought it'd interest me. And it's a bit of an anthology book, which follows different people each chapter, but really enjoyable. Nice little read as well, so definitely recommend that one. I think that's a really good book. Next, I've got The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. Obviously love Twin Peaks. Haven't read that one though, so can't really talk too much about it. Thomas Pinecon's Inherent Vice. Actually, I've still got my makeshift bookmark when I was reading this when I went for a while ago. I never finished it. I thought it was a really hard book to actually get into. Wasn't really enjoying it when I was reading it. This was another one of my wife's books I haven't read yet, but China Melville's The City and the City, but sounds really interesting, so I want to get into that one. Again, I think this is another one of my wife's books, The Woman in the Window, so never read it, can't tell you about that one. This is an interesting book. I thought this would be really good. I actually did, again, another makeshift bookmark in that one. Isabel Charman's The Zoo, which is all about like the founding of and the history of the London Zoo, and it's a bit boring, a bit too dry. Yeah, and it jumps all over the place a bit, and the premise of it and the look of it drew me in more than the actual book, and I've really struggled to get through it. If that makes sense. I haven't read this one either, Ticket to Oblivion. I think that was part of like buy free for so much from like HMV, and I just added it on. Rubicon by Tom Holland, so History of Rome. I bought it just after I went to Rome. I haven't read it yet, but really do want to because I want to learn more about Roman history. And then that makes me sound like one of these people who's always thinking about the Roman Empire, and it's not. I don't really generally think about it that much. It was just when we went to Rome, I heard someone ask a tour guide there what is the best book to read, and they recommended this one. So I thought, oh, great. If I want to learn more, that's the one to get. Next, I've got another book I haven't read, but obviously interested in, The Iliad by Homer. I've heard that Stephen Fry might be doing like the Odyssey and the Iliad as his next kind of Greek project. So yeah, I've not read it, but will definitely want to. Again, it just feels like something which is going to take a lot of concentration, so I want to have that. Another book I've started and didn't finish because I didn't think it was very good, The Strain, Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. Probably should give it another go. I think probably I watched a TV show and wasn't that keen on that either, and that put me off, but I'll definitely give it another go. And lastly, this is another one of my wife's books that I know she really liked, which is We Need to Talk About Kevin. I probably will give that a go at some point, but I've not read it. Actually, no, I'll do one more shelf, I think, and we'll call it a day after that. So I've got next Flann O'Brien's The Third Policeman. This is really funny. It's very kind of Alice in Wonderland-esque, but set in Ireland. Really interesting. I got this one because it was referenced in Lost. I think Lost is, as I said, Lost. There'll be a whole video I could do about Lost and its book references. But no, enjoyed that one. Not my favourite book ever, but enjoyable enough. Very surreal, very funny as well with that surrealism, which was quite good. Next, I've also got Matt Haig. Again, a couple of these are my wife's, which is How to Stop Time and Humans in the Midnight Library. I've read The Midnight Library. I enjoyed it. I did think that Matt Haig he spoon feeds a bit too much, but like there's some things which I found very obvious, and then you have to listen to the characters explain those very obvious things. So, but enjoyable enough as well. I haven't read the other two. Need to get around to these next two are my wife's as well. Gabrielle Zevin. She's got The Storied Life of A.J. Thickery and Young Jane Young. I'll probably give those a go. I really love Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Obviously, massive success of that book, so definitely want to get into that one. A Nick Hornby book. I don't know where that come from. A Long Way Down. I'll probably give that a read at some point, but I've never read a Nick Hornby, but I will. I don't know where that one is actually from. Watership Down. Again, I've got so many books that I need to read, so I'm definitely going to get to that one at some point. Are you a film student or have been a film student? If you don't own Joseph Campbell's The Hero of a Thousand Faces, I don't know. This one I read in a day, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I really enjoyed it. Really moving. I thought it was fantastic, so highly recommend Perks of Being a Wallflower as well. And I've realised I've got two film tie-in books which both have Ezra Miller on, which is kind of disappointing. I also got Stephen Chbosky, who went on to direct actually his own novel in Perks of Being a Wallflower. He's released another book the other year which I do want to read, which is Imaginary Friend. I find him really interesting because he was also the creator of a TV show called Jericho, which was a US TV show about nuclear bombs going off in America. And I love that TV show. I thought that first season of it was really good. It was definitely filling that kind of lost-shaped hole at the time. And I've loved the Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I've loved his other film he made, Wonder. I think he was the director of Wonder. But yeah, really looking forward to reading this one as well. So just a bit of a commitment for that one. Next I've got Andrew Marr and A History of Modern Britain. This was probably when I was doing my history A-level. I've got books I haven't read either, which is the Becky Chambers books. I think I really want to get into these, but I had been reading The Expanse series. I didn't want to have two space series at the same time. So now I've finished The Expanse. I'll probably read these sometime soon. And lastly, again, another one of my wife's books, which is Paddle Your Own Canoe by Nick Offerman. We were both massive Parks and Recs fans, so I think I probably got her that because we love Nick Offerman. And lastly, for this shelf, and I'll finish, is the acted edition of William Golding's Lord of the Flies, which I was in when I was in year 9. So yeah, that's a really old, really stained book. But yeah, I'll call that a day for my bookshelf tour, and we'll do like a part 2 later, because obviously it takes a bit of time. So thanks for watching the video again. Last thing I'll kind of touch on is done a couple of extra things as well in the last couple of weeks, probably why I've been so busy. Managed to get to the cinema. I saw Civil War, the Alex Garland movie. Thought it was fantastic. Really worth checking out. It's not an action heavy movie. It's also not, I wouldn't say a political movie in the sense that people will think, oh, it's about the American Civil War set nowadays, so it's going to be about, you know, Democrats versus Conservatives. Like it's not. It's actually quite interesting. I think they've made some smart decisions by making it quite vague as to like the politics of the two kind of sides. I thought that was really interesting, and it's more about journalism. It's about war journalists. It's
about kind of being able to view these things and not act, I guess, the inaction of but also how important it is to document things, how important it is to record these things happening, but also how when you are, you know, doing that, you do get you become part of the machine as well, and definitely about the loss of humanity and one's own humanity, which really kind of moving in that regard. So definitely worth watching. You know, I think especially like action packed wise, the last 20 minutes of the film are, and they are very good. But I thought the whole film was really good. Some really great performances as well. A couple of other things I've been to see recently, not films, but been to the theatre. So I saw 222 A Ghost Story. It's touring at the moment, and really enjoyed it. It was enjoyable when you're watching it, and but maybe I'd say needed a bit more substance. It's a bit more about the shock factor than anything else, but no, enjoyable to watch. And then the other day we went to see Stranger Things, The First Shadow. So that's the new Stranger Things. And the other day we went to see Stranger Things, The First Shadow, which is like the Stranger Things play. It's set in like, I think it's 1959. So it centers around Henry Creel. So a bit of a kind of origin story for him, but what you also have Joyce and Hopper and Bob as kind of high schoolers, teenagers there, which really enjoyed that. There's some great effects in it. It can feel a bit like, oh, if you've seen the show, there's a lot that's been kind of repeated, but if you're a fan of the show, I think that's it. If you're a fan of the show, it's really enjoyable. If you know, as a theatre experience, maybe it's not the best one, but in terms of, you know, maybe the story. But obviously, if you're a fan of the show and you're into the show, you know that the story can't end there. It's got a lot more to do. So it's a great kind of addition to the universe of Stranger Things, which obviously I showed you. I've got a couple of the books there, so I really love the Stranger Things kind of universe and the lore. So really worth watching in that respect for me. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I know actually this video's been a bit longer than I thought it'd be, but I didn't want it to get too long. We'll definitely do part 2 of my bookshelf tour, and there'll probably be 3, 4, and 5 because it's going to take forever. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye.